Right then, this weren't a planned video, but there's loads of stuff happening, so I thought, might as well film something. So, if people watched the last video, which you should have done, otherwise, why are you watching this one? This happened when we were on for a comfortable second place. So I think this might have got damaged when Danny had a little bit of wheel-to-wheel action in the previous race. That's why this has got a black wing on, a black side skirt, a door that's absolutely stoved in. It needs a lot of work. I don't know if we're going to get it painted in time. Definitely not for the test that we're going to do in 2 working days. So we best hurry up. Scott saw a few cars at Croft and he weren't happy how much grip we had on the front. I think it was gripping pretty well looking at the videos and the data and stuff, but there were a few cars that were gripping a lot better than us. I think we should concentrate on a bit of front aero, but a lot of it were in the slow speed corners, so it's probably not aero, it's just mechanical grip. So that's set a ball rolling and a lot of things. Scott wants 295 tyres. So this is a 265, that's a 295. If you're good at maths, that means it's 30mm wider, which is ridiculous. A 295 front tyre is just mental. That means we need to get an 11-inch wide rim. So they're on order, the tyres are here now, so we'll sort that out. What we wanted to do as well, because an 11-inch wheel and a 295 won't fit no matter how much we space it, and just spacing the wheel is not good for your scrub radius, which means you're just going to destroy your tyre. So we decided to go even wider on the arms. Verkline didn't want to build any wider arms for some reason, not sure why. So we made these as a quick test. We made these little spaces that were literally just wind in to the arms, tighten them up, Loctite them in. That's made the arms that much wider. How much is that much? We'll put up on there, I think that's like 40mm, I don't know. It's a lot wider anyway. Which that's had a knock-on effect, meaning we've got to space the arches out, but we'll show you what that looks like. It's not pretty, but it does the job for now. Then we'll get some new arches moulded if this ends up being the thing. We'll transfer it over to the Diesel TT if this ends up being the thing. We've ended up doing testing mid-season, which I didn't want to do, but that's when Scott's involved. I have a day off on a Wednesday, and I come back and there's always random stuff happening. The other thing that we're doing, seeing as we've got the gearbox in bits to repair, because we couldn't get that shaft out, we had a look, the diff looks like it had worn out as well, which it was fine before the race, it was fine in between the race, and then after this happened, it needed rebuilding. The preload had gone down on the diff, so it's had new clutch plates in, new bevel washers, or bevel springs, whatever you want to call them. And then we've decided to do this. This is one of the E-diffs, so we've still got the Drexler in, so in theory, when this E-diff's turned off, it'll drive as normal, but when we get this wired up and change the coding and do whatever we need to do, the E-diff should work. Now, I know on the TCRs they don't have a limited slip diff, they just have this, but this is remapped. So whether we need to pull the TCR diff, which we have got one, we could probably put one on this, I don't know why we've put a standard one on, but we could put the TCR mapping into our E-diff and see how that works, see what happens. But we have seen a bit of testing and drove cars that have had Drexlers and E-diffs, or this is SQS, plate diff and an E-diff back to back, taking the plate diff out and just running on the E-diff, and the E-diff works really well. So I don't know why we decided to do this test. Again, Scott's idea. Paul seemed to go a long way. I think Paul likes messing about as much as Scott does. But this could be the new thing. Maybe it'll work, it'll make things a lot cheaper, and maybe that'll carry over to the Diesel TT and Scott's Golf maybe, we don't know. But messing about mid-season, it's all good fun. See how this works out. Diesel TT, more little upgrades. This time they're not as big as what's happening with the petrol TT. Luckily, or unluckily, we're hoping to race this one at Anglesey and the other one just be a spare, but there's 2 races, so there's a potential that this will do one day and the petrol one will do the other day. We'll see. Dylan's sharing it with me, so we'll see how we get on with that. So we did take the intercooler off and we're going to put this Pro Alloy one on, but it needs a lot of work to get this to fit. It was a lot of money. We don't want to do it on this one. Not yet, at least. We might get them to make a different one, but it'll be to our spec, not the TCR spec. We can't run it on the TCR, and I don't think it'll fit on the petrol one, so we might have bought something that we can't really use. And it's sustained a bit of damage in transit, which is a bit annoying. But anyway, so a few reasons why that won't work, but it doesn't really matter. One of the other things, ever since last year, I've been wanting to get a modified subframe on this. So Paul's just been doing it now. We've just scanned it and printed some templates and going to have some bits laser cut, but we're just going to cut them out for now. Going to weld up all these holes just to strengthen this subframe, maybe make it a bit more aerodynamic. If you look at underneath at new Hyundais and stuff there, like ridiculous underneath. So as well, notching some bits out for clearance, chop this piece out so you can get the bolt in the other way, so you can actually take the bolt out without taking the gearbox out, which is a big thing when you're trying to change the bottom arms outside at tracks. It makes things hard. And we're changing the height that's at just to get the roll centres in a bit of a better place. So that's that. That is a bit heavier because the one that's on there is aluminium, but it doesn't really matter. The other thing that we're going to do, when we've been driving this on track, the front feels a little bit soft. It's on an 80 Newton spring at the minute. We've tried 100 and we've got a few sets of 100s. So I've got some 90 Newtons from eBack. They're there, so we're going to fit them, see how we get on. And then the rear is on 160s. These are 170, so they'll be the stiffest spring that we've ever tried on our cars, just to try and get the back to be a little bit looser without making it feel too crazy by putting loads of toe out on there. So I'm going to do that, and then test it at Blyton against the petrol TT, but Scott's put wide track on that, and so now it ain't an accurate comparison, but forget about that. We need to be probably around 310s, maybe a little bit more. So we'll see what we can do. Pickles are just ruining it. Zoom in on his stupid face. He's never shouted, except now. He ain't ruined the video, really. So we need to be well above 300, or above 300. We'll put up exactly what figure we need to be. I can't remember how much this weighs, but we hope that this one with the carbon doors and stuff would be a fair bit lighter than the other TT, but it's not as much. Not sure why, because the gearbox is a lot lighter, with it being a manual and stuff like that. The diesel engines are not any more complicated or they shouldn't really be any heavier, but anyway, it's not much lighter than the other TT. There's only a few kilograms in it. So we need a bit more power than we expected. Like the Golfs that Area are running, they're running like 380 horsepower on Tegua's dyno, so maybe 350s on ours. So we need as much power as we can get, stay within the regs, and keep it reliable. We'll let Paul fit all this stuff. He's literally got the rest of today to finish that, and then on Tuesday, I don't know if he's going to have time to get it all done. Subframe to fit, intercooler to fit, alignment to do, springs to fit, and load it up ready for Wednesday morning. So it's going to be a busy Tuesday. Hopefully he's getting somebody to help him, but we'll see. We'll try and record what we can, but there's a lot of work to get done, and we've done all this a million times before. But once these bits are done on this car, I don't believe we've got anything else other than whatever Scott finds on that to do with it. So hopefully Wednesday goes well.
Today we're doing a test of whether more tyre equals faster lap times.
So we had a good result. The TT Diesel came second in the first race it ever did, which was good. And then in the second race, I came fifth, I think. But I think we're on pace to probably top three if we'd have not done some silly little mistakes, but that's life. We went on a wet setup and it didn't get too wet, so that's our fault. But anyway, so the petrol one didn't actually get used other than in testing, but we did figure out that this abomination that we've created with the wide arches and the 295 tyres is at angle seat were probably nearly a second quicker, and that's literally the only real difference between these two cars. Power to weight's the same, obviously manual, diesel, blah de blah, but that is literally the only thing. From the Blighton testing, we're about half second adrift, and then at angle C it were about a second, and they lasted loads longer. So we're going to try and replicate that on the diesel one. That's why all this stuff's here, and we've been laser scanning all this. All we're going to do for the moment is make our own caster arm so that we can put the caster back where it wants to be, because that car, although it's got the wide track, it's got about 6 degrees caster when it should be like 8 or 9. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to make our own custom arms out of T45, have them heat treated and sort all that sort of stuff out. So that's this one. The other checks that the cars are having, which is lifted it right up now and can't see it, we go through all these checks every time we bring the car back in, and then we do a thorough check, go through everything, change all the fluids and everything while we're in the workshop. So we're going to do that. This car, because it didn't do much, doesn't really need much. We're just going to take that as the spare car for the next round at Ulton. So in theory, it should be me and Aaron, which is an MR2 champion, last year's champion, in the diesel TT, and then Scott just in the Golf, because nobody else wants to drive these weekends. So yeah, this is pretty much going to stay as is. These bits of tape on here, this is a bit of measuring up that we're doing, because we're going to put a bit more venting in the bonnet to try and get the heat out of the engine bay. And then this here is going to be a vent that lets all the air out of the arches, because you can see the tyre is there. So we're going to replace all this. We're going to have all custom wings made to fit both cars that are going to have the wide track. And then we 3D printed a piece that went in here, which we're going to use as a mould, but one of them actually came off at the track because we'd not put enough screws in it, really, for our... Basically, it meant it were working. Yeah, so like I say, this is staying as it is, really. Not much happening. Diesel TT, loads of issues with the alternator overcharging and then putting the ABS into crazy try and kill you mode, which we've probably got a clip of that. Caught Dylan out once or twice. But yeah, that's that. Golf, not really doing too much with that. It's just had all the fluids done, changed the coolant because we've had the radiator out for some reason. I can't remember what we had radiator out for, but other than that, it's pretty much sorted. But one thing we did have a problem with, in the pit stop, it didn't want to start, and that turned out to be the cam trigger had just decided to become two-piece, which don't know why, but it did. Luckily it got started and it did the last hour of the race like that. So yeah, there's that. These little bits that we're doing here as well, I think this is going to end up on the diesel TT, but it might end up on the petrol one as well. So this is all the crazy stuff that Harry's been drawing up. So we've got the 100mm that we're allowed in the regulations. We're going to notch out so you can actually change oil without having to take splitter off. And then these little things are going to be sort of on the underneath, bolted to the underneath of the splitter. And we're going to probably put some more strakes in there to try and push the air out from the side of the tyre. And then this is going to send it up and under the car. I think should help with a bit of front downforce. Harry's been watching some videos and coming up with some stuff. And we're also going to put a nice curved edge on the front of the splitter. But yeah, loads of little bits of stuff happening aero-wise, just trying to get the car pushed down the front. We're really grip limited on the front. I still think the dampers are not quite there. We've been revalving them pretty much every round, just trying to get into the sort of ballpark. And we have got them somewhere, I don't know where they are. I'll put a picture of one of them up. Got some shock pit tensiometers, which got them pretty cheap. I'm going to stick them on all four corners and get some data and see where we are. Yeah, trying to think if there's anything else car-wise. There definitely will be. The RS3, that's not getting used at this next round, so forget about that for now. You didn't need to see that again. That's just parked up there, waiting for the bumper to be repaired. Yeah, and then the other thing, we've got a sink unit that I've got to try and make this collapsible and have hot water and everything, and this is where we're going to use to do all the cooking. That's pretty much sorted now, the compressor flight case. And then I'm just on with this at the minute. We're making putting it back at truck. We'll see what it looks like when it's done. Somewhere to put all the kit bags, because they all just keep going on the floor. So that's going to go in the back of the truck. I've got some plywood, why is plywood 130 quid a sheet? I don't know. But yeah, I've got to make a zero clearance fence for this. I don't start ripping me 130 quid piece of wood to bits. So yeah, that's today's job for me and a few days worth of work for everybody else. So we'll try and record what we can and catch up when there's something interesting to look at. We'll see. So I'm definitely not filming this after I already know some of the stuff that's happening later. But had a couple of good results so far and a couple of issues that means we're going to have to do some upgrades, which will be in part 2. So stick around and watch that. I think that's going out in a week or so's time. The 295s staggered, obviously 265s on the rear. have made a massive difference. I still don't think the diesel car is quite as quick as the petrol, even though the power to weight is very, very similar. But we put a little bit of ballast in that and took a little bit of power out of that, so we're still working things out there. I think really we could do going back to the dyno and seeing where we are exactly, but we're under now, and that is probably the problem. Yeah, loads of mods still to do. Really happy with the 265s, like the tyre wear and how the car feels. You can just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Obviously, you're not doing your fastest lap every time, but before it really, with the 265s in front, you really knocked the lap time down. Like the difference was probably like a second. Now it's probably less than half. So yeah, really happy. So hopefully the next part, there's some nice looking stuff going on. It's bits and bats and all sorts. We're not really re-engineering the cars entirely anymore, which is what I wanted, but that doesn't mean we've got a lot of good content. So after we've come back from Belgium, Brands Hatch, if everything's all gone to plan, we'll try and do some sort of summary or something. But anyway, stick around for part 2.